a difficult story to tell. First of all, how did you become interested in this story?
In fact, I lived in the area where the story actually takes place. My parents have a property in the area. I might not sound like it because I've got an English accent, but my father's Irish, and we used to have a house in East Clare, which I would spend a lot of time at summers and Christmases and what have you. So I knew the area. So when, unfortunately, the tragedy occurred, the horrific tragedies occurred, the 3 murders that Brendan O'Donnell committed, it was huge news throughout Ireland, not just in Clare, but throughout Ireland. And everyone knew about it. So it was some years later that people started to talk to Terry, the producer, Terence Ryan, and started to say there's things missing. You know, he's been sentenced as a sane man and he's gone back into a mental institution, but he was always in a mental institution. But how have they sentenced him as a sane person? It didn't seem to make sense. And so Terry got some researchers in to find out more about Brendan in his younger years. And eventually we came across his sister's diary, Anne-Marie's diary, almost by accident. But it did have a line on the very front cover. Can you still love someone that has done a terrible thing? And that was basically, we knew, an inroad into his story, into how we could explain what happened to Brendan was through his sister's eyes. So in the end, it becomes then Anne-Marie's story, in a sense, living with someone that has a mental illness. And it just gets progressively worse and worse and worse and worse. And he slips through the gaps, cracks even. And then when people should have been helping him as he was older, they didn't. And unfortunately, terrible crimes were committed that should have been avoided, in my eyes. It really should have been avoided.
I mean, you guys must have done incredible research on this. Was there any resistance from the medical community or from anyone that said, oh...
I mean, the research, we were able to get a lot of the research from the public domain newspaper reports of the period, but it wasn't until we got Anne-Marie's journal, and she'd lived through it all, that we were then able to figure out when and where he was at specific times, and then we were able to find out where he had been. I don't believe people would have wanted us in the early days to be finding out too much, but I don't recall that much resistance into it. But yeah, I mean, for us it was just, we knew it was a story that really needed to be told, because it doesn't just affect Ireland in a whole, or even County Clare in a whole, or even Ireland. It affects the UK, the US, Canada. There was always issues with mental health being addressed. I mean, lack of funding, lack of knowledge, and at times it's a taboo. You know, people want to ignore it. And in a sense, we're hoping that this film will highlight something that a tragedy happened that shouldn't have happened. Whether it was 20 years ago, still a huge amount has been invested into certain degrees of mental health, but not a lot has actually happened in trying to change it. We still have issues in the UK as well as here in Ireland with funding for mental health and how you deal with children with it. I mean, there are obviously people that know what they're doing, but there's not enough. I think that maybe with some hope, and this film probably hopefully getting out there, it might put something, some sort of, I suppose, at least highlight the situation for some.
We hope so. So tell me about your actors. You have an incredible cast. What was
Very
it like
fortunate.
directing them and seeing this magic happen in front of
I mean,
your
the film is relatively low in budget, and being like that, and the fact that we have many children, and you have a lack of time, you have to get really good actors.
Yeah.
And so we did cast extensively for the parts. But we started at the top, generally with the top ages, so with Brendan being played at 17, 18 to 22, we looked at one character for him. Terence and I cast for a long time, and our casting director, Gillian Hawser, found someone special in Patrick Gibson, and we knew straight away. We knew we wanted him. And it was the same with Anne-Marie, Aisling Loftus. She is beautiful and just so sensitive to her part and her role. And so we then looked, who can we pair these older people up as younger people themselves. So the 14-year-old with David Ryle, I'd seen him in Moon Boy before.
Yeah.
He was very good, but at very different parts in this. And Hazel Dupe, I'd seen her in a few television programs as well. And Daniel White, who plays the youngest of the boys. What I did was I was able to surround them with a very good cast. So that cast I could rely on, because I've worked with a lot of them before. I could rely on them being on set and doing their thing, because we would talk about it, and it would give me time with the younger cast to really get the most out of them. And to be honest, I didn't really have to push that hard to get the most out of them. They were just amazing, and I really believe one day they'll do extremely well.
It must have been hard for you not to sit there and like not get emotional.
I did. There is a scene where the mother, Margaret, tells her mother, the grandmother, that she wants to leave the father because she's been beaten up.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in a room next door watching the monitor, and I was the only one with cans on, and I'm listening to it, and every time I'm watching it, I'm getting more and more upset as she's trying to tell her mother that she wants to leave, and the mother's sort of telling her. I couldn't say cut. It was coming out almost very high pitched. cut, you know. And I was literally, by lunchtime, I wanted to get off that scene because I was so devastated by it. And it is a devastating scene. It happens very early on in the film as well. But it really does start with the tugging at the heartstrings early on. I mean,
so tell me about what was interesting in the Q&A about this female
our crew. Yeah, so we shot the film up in Northern Ireland, in the northwest region of Northern Ireland, near enough Derry, and most of our crew came on. It was almost 60%, if not probably more, were women, and some of them had never worked in film before, but that wasn't a challenge. You know, I didn't mind that. I mean, they were all willing to give 110%. They'd worked in theatre before, but as long as I had my main crew that I was able to bring on, I really didn't mind bringing up other people and teaching them what to do, and they were all willing to work. I mean, none of them wanted to go back and work at the superstore after Tesco's or wherever it was. They all wanted to continue at film, and I really hope, you know, they can.
Well, that's nice to hear that more women are, you know.
I mean, I must admit, I'd never worked on a film with that many on the crew, and it was not a problem. I mean, I don't see why people would think it would be. But I really hope it does work out for a lot of them.
So what's next for the film? Where are we going to be able to see it in the U.S. or?
We hope to be showing it in the States very soon. I mean, at the moment it's going to be in the UK and Ireland. It gets released at the end of this year. So the States will probably be, I would have thought March, if not maybe spring, coming into the. So maybe you might want to hold on to this and then release that when we do release it, because there will be screenings of it. I think we're going to take it to a couple of festivals initially in the States first, and then it will be the release. The general release will be at a certain later date.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you for
telling this story.
Thank you very much. Thank you.